Okay, I think we can start. Hello everyone, welcome to today's session, and the plan for today is to go through the Acitivity13. I see that for most of you there were some complicities there, so we'll go through the activity and check what was okay, what was wrong there. That's about Acitivity13. Then we'll start talking about the project management. Under the project management, we will also have theory. What are the main parts? How the project management is done. So we'll go through the perspective when you are the developer in the project management, and when you are supposed to manage the project yourself. Yeah, that's about the plan. Then we will also cover Jira under the project management, so as I mentioned last week, when we use Jira, we can also use it in relation with Bitbucket. So it means that when you create the branches, the corresponding tickets in Jira will see them. But yeah, I will show you how it looks like. And before we start today's session, let's check from the previous session how does the repository looks like. the test repository, the practical version control. So idea was that this one, that you all change the same file. So you just add the method, your own method to the file. No, this one, I guess. Oh yeah, under the separate branches, of course. Under the separate branch, each of you creates the method here. Yeah, so that's fine. Yeah, but that's my branch. Yeah. So here's my method. Yeah. So okay, there was no such file here. No such method here. But okay, I thought that the idea was pretty, yeah. So here's there are the methods here, so that was the main idea. And under the master branch, I asked you all to push the same files. So yeah, the files are here, so it's fine. And that was practically the idea, that we all change one branch. So it means that if we change multiple files, if we change or add, create or delete different files, then we can briefly work under the same time. We can briefly work under one branch, since we don't interfere each other. We don't do any changes with the same files there. So from this perspective, it's nice, it's good. But yeah, if we change the same file, then we may have the conflicts, of course, because as you may understand, if we change the same file, we may also touch the same content. And in this case, it's better to split in separate branches. Then it can be all of you, it can be one of you. Yeah, mostly it should be one of you who, one of the developers who merge all these changes into one branch, and then all the changes may go to the master branch. Yeah, that was such practical exercise that we all work on the same repository. For now, let's then move to Acitivity13. And so I've already created, and yeah, for this one, since we will use just our own database, as I mentioned to you once, to have the right unit test, you can. So basically, what's the idea? Idea is that when we use the unit tests, so we run the unit tests. As you may already notice, that we extend the database. We extend the superclass. And the superclass mostly comes from the compiled version, compiled version of the class. So it should be under the reference libraries, GTM, and yeah, that should be right here. So that's the Acitivity13, so it should be here, and here is the class, which by default is extended from here. Yeah. So it searches for the class under gtm.gar, and it is here. It is in binary form, as you may notice. So we need to use decompiler, and only using the decompiler we can open it. Okay, so I'm not sure I don't. Okay, yeah, that's maybe because moment. Okay, yeah, that's the different version of Eclipse, so I need to install decompiler. So install decompiler, and then I can open binary Java files. We did it before, but yeah, I used a different version of Eclipse, and that's one of the version. I think I don't have this decompiler installed, but that's the way you can open such binary files. And to decompiler. So basically, right here, So installed. So basically this one just translates the binary code, Java binary code into original Java code, and we can read it as Java code. It's just binary code. You can see here. It's the binary export. That's the sign. And yeah, once it's installed, we can open it and see the binary code, the source code of the test class. Okay, it's still installing, but I did it before, so I just copy paste the class here, and so here how the original class looks like. So basically this is the class which is extended by this class. If you just simply create new database test file here, and just paste code, you will see it here. This is what I mentioned. I already shared these files with you. So we put 28th of April. If you missed it, you can check it there. So there are 3 files which you can use. Here. So here is this file, and later, and basically here the only change you could do is, I shared the raw content with you, but the idea was that originally the database used, the connection to the database used here was not quite relevant to our project. So I was to check, and so I basically changed some logic here, and now we can actually connect to our database, which is not, well, in this case it's not localhost something, but this is, here we use our own database. So this point can be skipped. Nobody can actually use our own database. So, and yeah, before we do it, as you can see here we have SQL file. And comparing to the previous courses, this file is a little bit outdated, so right here you do not need so the file will not create you the database itself. Yeah, it will not create the database itself, you just need to use the existing database and put all the tables there. So as usual, I go to PHP myadmin. I can create my own database, so let it be, say, Acitivity13 database. I created, and now I can, yeah, you can just basically use any name. So the only difference is that you will need to use this name in your code. So you need to use this name in your code. So, and after that I go to this database file, and I and I paste, I run SQL Query. So basically this is the way you have the database, and here's the logic which basically creates all the tables under this database. There can also be the logic which also puts the data. So in this case, if you have such SQL file, you can migrate, in fact, any database with any content. One point which may be a little bit tricky is that different databases have different versions. So what does it mean? It means that some databases use older versions of MySQL, and they may have some restrictions. And from my experience, there is one quite tricky restriction that for the length of the fields. So if you use the fields as the, we have some fields here. If you use them as the secondary key, so it's usually the index as the index key, then the size, I mean the length of the total length of the fields used in the key. So that can be not may not the primary key, but secondary key, which can be the index, for example, the index. Then the size of this number of characters in total, which can be used as the part of this key, is limited. Yeah, so in such cases, be careful when you migrate the database or you just execute SQL queries, because if you take the data or the structures of the database just from one database to another, then you may have such problem that you need to restrict the size of the elements, and also need the elements of the key. Okay, so this is one point which you may face when you work with the database. So yeah, right now I don't have any issues because I guess I have the latest version of MySQL, or one of the latest versions. So there should be no restrictions, and as you can see, the database is migrated to its own place, and we can use it. Yeah, one more thing. Please note that when you implement the logic here, then you run the unit test. The data here will be changed. So the data here will be changed. So what does it mean? It means that you have the initial data from SQL file here, right? You then execute unit test, then the data is changed here. So what does it mean? It means that you cannot execute the same unit test without the refresh of this database twice, because the data is already changed. But the unit test is expected to work on the initial data from SQL file, and that's why. So after you implement logic, here you run unit test, then maybe something is wrong, something is correct. You need to run unit test again. So what do you need to do? You need to go to the database. You can clear all the tables. So okay, I can do it a little bit differently. Yeah, you can actually delete the whole database. You can also clear it too. For some reason I don't see the button to clear the database. So okay, maybe you can just simply oh no, actually select the action here. Yeah, so if you select all the tables, you can simply press check all. You can try to drop. You can drop, and after that you won't see any table, and you can reinitialize it. So again, you go to SQL Query, you will execute it, and you will have the fresh version of the data, of the database. Okay. So this is done. So now we have the database we can work with, and now we can implement what is requested here. Yeah, we don't need to change teacher. Teacher class is just a structured data which represents what we need. And right now let's go one by one. So first of all, we have teacher manager class. We need right here we need to initialize our database. So I use try catch because I may have an SQL exception. So then we can yeah, okay, let's start. So when teacher is created, create connection to the database server. Okay, so so the logic is the same as we did before. So we use pause for name, we load the driver. Load the driver. And we also need to check if we have all the connections here. Seems that all the connections are fine. And SQL classes are loaded. So from this point of view, there should not be any issues. Then we, as I said, in conditional expression. So the steps here are the same we did before for the database. So nothing new here. In theory, I can also just go to my code examples and copy paste the logic from there. No differences. So I get the connection to be retrieved from my local host. It's my SQL. So the start is the same as here. I'll double check if I need to use localhost or the actual address of localhost, which is 127.0.0.1. But yeah, maybe double check. We used the database here. As you remember, then I guess that was the right one. No. Sorry. Moment, this one. Check where did we use it? Oh yeah, right here. Yeah, I need to use the actual address. Okay, so that should be one. So there may be difference because this should be 127.0.0.1 for Mac computers. It usually is different. I guess that's 192.68 as I remember, or something like that. Those who use Mac, you can verify it. Yeah, so that is the address, and yeah, we can simply copy paste this part for reconnection. Sorry, this one. So in the time zone, so all things here. I don't need to provide the name of the database, and then I have the same credentials I had before. So I use root, username, and initial password, and empty password. So and yeah, I think that's our now. Then I need to set all the comments to false. So it means that before we commit the changes will not be updated in the database. So set all comment false here, and yeah, we can have the exception. So what else is written here? Seems that we cannot pass name, yeah, we didn't. And yeah, we can set that, yeah, that is done. Okay, so at this point we done, and now we can move to the next method. Next method is find teacher. So basically here we need to create the SQL query where we select the teacher from the database. As you can see, there is the ID of teacher provided. And so using this ID we need to find the teacher. So right as well. Search teacher by if teacher is not found, return teacher object was 0 or no in SQL. So we can create such object by default. So this will be the default object we return. So that's the teacher. And as you can see, okay, it's loading. I'm going to close some applications. I hope it should be faster. Okay, so create a feature class, a feature object. So that should be 0, and okay, this is done, and now we can use. Now we can create a selector. So again, we'll strike catch. This one may have SQL exception. So you can simply write it here. Import it. I guess, right. It's yeah. At this point, it will be unreachable because we haven't written any logic here. So before we write it, it will show the syntax error. But yeah, let's start building our logic. So maybe I will. It suggests me the name. So let's maybe create this one. And I create a prepare statement from the connection. So that we select. So we select all from, and now we need to provide the database. At this point, we can actually provide the name of the database. And that's Acitivity13 database. At this point, everything depends on your code. You can select, and we have feature table. This one, so I can select by ID. It should be here, right? So I have ID. So, and since this prepare statement, I use question mark, and after that I can set it. Prepare statement, and I set integer, and here I set it. So just the usual prepare statement, and instead of the question marks, we will have the element we provide here. So the sequence should be start at 1, and first one. So the first one, this is the first one. For this, if we have the second one, then we will have here the 2 and the value of the element and so on. Okay, so here we have just one value, and then we can execute query. We use result set, where we will have the results selected. And this we just prepare a statement, and we execute the query. So the query will be done here, and since we just have one element, I can simply check if there's next element here, and then I can set the right values. So we set ID. Basically, the ID is already here. I can select this ID, but I can select this ID since it's already here. Or I can just simply use this way, so that's the same approach, the same value will be here. So I can select ID, just what I got from the database. This one, yeah, there's no difference. Which ID do you select? So then I can set first name. So I can use the column name. So then I can use the column name. That's the second column we have here. First name, or I can use the name. This will be I can use the column name. This will be the same. And first name. There's no difference. What you use? You can use column index, or you can use column name. The result will be the same. And then the last name comes from. I prefer using the names because that is more clear what we select. from database. Yeah, and at the end we need to return teacher. Okay, so this method is done. Then let's imagine that we may have multiple teachers, which we find by name and surname. In this case, we should use like. Yeah, like means that it contains the name and surname. So in this case, basically I will copy paste something from here. This part. Copy paste. Yeah, I need to return empty list. So by default, I need to create the list of teachers. So then I can create this list. Here it is, and so by default I initialize it. So then I just modify the per statement. Database is the same. So if I start, it means that it selects all the values. If I had select symbol, then yeah, actually I can use select symbol. Anyway, you can check all the statements before you use them here. Oh no, there's no select symbol. Oh no, that will be select this statement. Yeah, but that's a different case. I mean, all the statements you can double check them here. You can create your own query. The whole ID where ID equals 1. Then you can simply build the same query on the viewer in Java code. So I'm going to do first. First I can check them. You can take them from right column. And say like for example. And then you'll get. Yeah, please note what kind. Please be careful what kind of quotation marks you use. If you use double quotation marks, then this means that this is the text you provide. You can provide the text. You can also provide the numerical values. But if you cannot use such quotation marks because these are used for the technical names. Not for the values, only for the technical names. So it means that you can provide the name of the fields using such quotation marks, and also the name of the database, name of the database tables, but not the actual values. So, for the actual values, you can use single quotation marks, such or double quotation marks. So this is for SQL queries, yeah. So now I need to select by name and surname and use like so. Oh no, sorry, that was incorrect here. Select teacher, not ID, of course. Yeah, so here I need to where, of course, where ID equals. So the statement was incorrect. Of course, we provide the name of the database and the name of database table, and then it means where statement. Okay, this is done. Then same here with teacher, and then again where statements to be written here. And we have first name like then the first parameter, and last name like the second parameter. While we like, let's check again this point. So we can use like for bar. So as a simple where, this will work. This will work. Yeah, let's check if this works with case sensitivity, like if we say this way. This way that also works. Yeah? So it means that this check is not case sensitive. That's what we like. And also if we have the partial name, then this will not work. Yeah? So basically using like we can be sure that this is not case sensitive check. Yeah? And in some cases, not in some, but maybe in most cases, it's better to use like than equals sign, because especially in this kind of filters and this kind of searches, then usually users don't care if the name is written 100% correctly. Like in this case here, we can see that it does not match the actual value on the in the database, but the result is successful. Yeah, the entry is found. Yeah. So that's because the user just written the name where all the letters are in uppercase. Right. So here we go. Next. So this point is done. Then we need to set up the values. So we don't have integer here. So at this point we will need to set strings. So we have the first parameter, and then we have the first name. And for the second parameter, this will be last name. And yeah, now we can execute query, and here we may have multiple, and yeah, we also need to use the percentage marks. So because this is the partial match, so let's also check if we use the partial match here. Oh, no, sorry, here. So then let me first I use like, and this would be, say, MA. Yeah, now you can see that it still works. Yeah, so for the partial mark, it just simply means that the percentage marks are used, basically anything can be placed instead of percentage marks. So the same if we use RA, right here, then it should, yeah, now it searches for more because we have RA here, AR here, and AR here as well. So it basically searches for the partial string, and that's what we can use here as well. And yeah, let's see. So here we can concatenate the strings. In this case, that will be safe because we do not have any specific values in between. So we have plus here as well. And yeah, now we can go through all the entries. So while the result set has the next entry, then we can create the future. We should declare the future. So that will be a new feature. We can already add feature at this point, and then we can set the value for the feature. And basically in this case this works the same way as it worked before. So this is done. This is done, and we can go to the fourth point. Here we need to insert teacher. So again, I will use the similar query I used here for single teacher. And yeah, we should return true if everything is correct. If something is wrong, then we return false. So by default we return false, but here we will return true if everything is correct. So at this point I do not need to create the teacher object. That's first point, and I need to modify the query. So I have insert into, and here I can provide the name of the database. I don't need from again. So I have the name of database, or no, database table as the teacher. And then what do? I insert the first name, last name, and then the values. And the values, of course, are the question marks, because these are the parameters we will fill from the code. Yeah, so this point is done, and again I need to fill the parameters. The first parameter is the first name. And of course that's not the integer, it's the string. Second parameter is also the string, because this is the last name. And we don't need to apply the ID, because the ID will be created automatically. Because here you can see that the auto increment is set for the field. So if we go to structure, then we can see that it is auto increment. So what it means that after a new entry is added to the database, then it will add the entry with the first and the last name, and the ID will be just the next one. So if you have 1, 2, 3, then the next one will be 4, and so on. Just is automatically incremented. And then we can execute. We will not execute query, we will execute update. I will not have any without query, but when we execute update, then we can see how many rows there are updated. So this would be execute update. So, and this shows how many rows there are updated here. If we insert, let's say 2 rows, then there are 2 rows inserted or updated. And so yeah, then we can check if there's at least 1 row updated. Then we'll do the changes. So it means that we need to commit the changes, and then we return true that shows that everything is fine. Otherwise it will be false. So we move next, and then we can insert the teacher with the this one. We need to insert the teacher with from the object. Yeah, and it also has the ID. So in this case, I can copy paste the logic, and again I will need to modify. Here we'll have the ID, because we have the teacher object, so there should be the ID, and I can change the sequence here. I will provide the name I'm serving from teacher object. So the only difference from the previous method is that we will have the ID here, which comes from the teacher object. And I will set it as integer, as the first parameter, and this should be get ID. Right, so this is done here, and all the other steps are the same here. Okay. So this step is done. Then we can also update feature. For the update, I will use the same logic again. Yeah, so there's the status. Actually, I think I don't need it. But yeah, here we use, instead of insert, we'll use update. And I will do the set. So this will look a little bit differently. So I will set first name. Then I will set last name. And in this case, I do not set ID. Why? Because we cannot change the actual ID. We cannot update ID because this is the primary key. So the only thing we can do, we can delete the previous entry and then create a new one if we want to use different ID. But in this case, we will update the entry. So it means that to update, we need to provide the key. So the SQL can find the entry we need to update. And so it will be done by ID, of course. So it will be done by ID, and using the ID it will find the right entry. So this is done, and then I will just change the sequence here. The logic will be pretty much the same. And then again I execute update and tell it to true or false. So there is no much changes, but just the name of the just the query itself. Right, this is done. Then we have delete feature. Under delete feature, we just need to provide the ID. So there's nothing special here. So here I will, not update. Yeah, so here I have the should not update int. Of course, this is incorrect. So just update without int. You can only insert int, not update. And so there should be update. And here we should just mark statement delete. So provide the database. Again, now set delete from we use, and here just simply provide the ID. I don't need to set anything, just delete using the ID. So we don't have feature object, I just have the ID. I have only one parameter, and all the other steps are fine. And here I can use more greater than 0 or equals to 1. In this case, this will be absolutely the same, because the ID is unique, so we cannot have duplicates, and I can delete the only row with such ID from the table. This is done, and the last thing is to false connection. So again, I use try catch here. And here I may have only SQL exception. And yeah. So here I check if connection is opened. So if we have the connection, if connection is not null, then I can close it and reinitialize it. Well, for the warnings, you can simply close it and initialize it as well. Alright, that's pretty much it. Do we have something about the exceptions? Oh yeah, actually we have longer class. I think that was I'm not sure if it was mentioned here, so let's maybe check under to do. yeah, in case you want to navigate to the file which is open, you can press this button. Okay. This will navigate you to the file. I now have HTML here, so I need to open it using the browser. By default, it will be edited as HTML. So, oh yeah, there is the login here. Okay, so we need to use the log to track the changes. So this is the one step we need to do. So if anything goes wrong, then this should be handled under the login class. So I can use that static logger class. So this is this class. So I can put all the necessary changes here. All the necessary, not changes, but exceptions, warning errors here. So I provide a teacher class. Oh, so teacher manager class. This one, and just the class itself. And now I can put the exceptions into the log. So this is it. You can just simply see all the errors we have here, what we faced with the execution of the method. And so again, I will just simply copy paste it here, and here, and here, and here again. Basically all the methods. So now the exceptions will be handled into the log. Okay, let's see if maybe something is missed. Let's check. So new test. Now to use this class. Not the one from the GTM class. Okay, something is wrong. Let's check what's wrong. Okay, because results is no, so that is the fourth one. Okay, let's check what's wrong. So we have insert teacher. Yeah, basically there is the insert teacher A4. No, it's very mistake. Okay, so let's check what's wrong here. So we have the connection, we have the prepare statement. So this is fine. Or maybe since it shows no pointer exception, why does it want to use the size? Okay, let's check this. Let's check this as A4, A4. This one, okay. So it wants to have the list resulted. Find teacher, find names. Oh, okay, I got it. And that's not insert teacher. Find teacher by name. Sorry, that was the wrong one. This one. So it's find teachers by name. Yeah, that was my point. I did not return the teachers here. Okay. So So we need to return features. Oh, that was the issue here. So maybe before we move with others, let's check what's here. The same here. When we insert feature, what was the issue here when we insert? Okay, some methods may be correlated with each other. That's why it's better to run your test again. So I will refresh the database. So I drop all the entries. I go back to the SQL file. I execute it here. And now I have a fresh database. Okay, so let's run again. So this is this one. I run the test. Okay, yeah, almost everything is correct. Yeah, because the unit tests, it uses the results from 4 in the fifth test. Yeah. So you may, if you have issues in let's say the fourth test, then you may also have the issues in others, because the collections, the same collection may be used in multiple methods. Okay, so we have 2 issues left. Let's see what are the issues under the update feature. So maybe at this point I will not really see what's the issue, but let's check what could possibly go wrong here under the update feature. So I have the statement. And database is correct. Teacher set first name yes, last name yes, and where ID that's correct. So then I set integer on the correct position. That should be correct. Set first name here and second name here. Okay, that seems to be fine. Then I execute update, and then I have possession commit. Okay, at this point this should be correct. But not sure why do I have the assertion error here. Do I have assertion error? So. Okay, so this is. Okay, so we can actually debug unit test as well. Okay, let's double check again. What could possibly? It can also be related to the issues. Oh, maybe that was the issue. If we had, if there was the issue with the transaction commit, then we may also have the issues in other methods. So let's check the functions commit when feature is updated. Okay. So here we may have the issue, but no, I can see that it is updated. Okay, so when feature is deleted, and if the introduction is committed, then when it's updated, it's also committed. Insert, yes. That's interesting. No, that's maybe because of the same issue we have here. That's interesting. Okay, then we can try to debug it. We'll try to debug this. So again, I will query the database. And then I will update it as well. Again, so we go here. Database and we paste here. This is done, and now we need to put the breakpoint on the place we had the error. So the error was here, so we can try to check and put the breakpoint here. And let's try to execute the unit test. So the debug mode, so it should go to the... Oh, no. It didn't stop here. Okay, so there's maybe one more option to not okay, maybe let's check. So it should be the fifth the name to okay, so this should be question is why the result is not true. So it should be the fifth one. Okay, we don't have this one. Okay, so it seems that the entry is not entered to the database. Okay, so that's the okay, we have the command, we have the results. Okay, so let's check maybe this one. Okay, let's have the break now, and during the break I will check what was wrong here. Okay, so let's have the break, and after the break we see what was the issue here. So okay, let's continue. Yeah, I found the issue. That was just a syntax issue. So basically, it finished up with the exception. So basically, there was the issue. We don't need to repeat set twice. If we have the statement set, then we should use it only once. There's one issue. And once again, initialize the database. Yeah, I can simply drop. Should be fine. So this is done. Let's now leave the tests again. Okay, now everything is correct. So that was the task. Almost all the statements were quite. The statements on top methods are quite similar, just maybe different, only different SQL queries are used. In general, everything seems to be pretty much the same. If you have any questions, please ask. Then we can move to the presentation. The presentation is about the project management today. So this one. So as you may already notice, in IT almost all the work is considered as a separate project. So usually, how does it look like? We have work to be done, and the process how this work is done is called project. So the whole process is in the project, and of course that we need to that the project should be managed in some way. That's why we have project management in software development. So basically, what are the bad approaches to be used under the project? So one of the worst approaches would be to just simply write the code and then deliver it to the customer for whom you write this code. Also, the simple way of just code and fix, so code coding, hacking, kernel style planning. This also is not work. So basically, it means that you just simply have the program, then you just know what you want to achieve, like how to find a website, and you have imagined the final version of your website, how it should look like, and then you just simply start the code. Of course, that's not the right approach to be used. So this model starts with the product idea and just lost code until the product is ready. Or money, time, or interest runs out. Just work around the order, and at the end, just assume that you want to get good results. Also work for solo projects. That's maybe a little bit tricky because most of the projects are done in teams, and that's why mainly project management is not really what can be done there. But it still needs to organize the work, and it doesn't work non-trivial corporate software projects. of course, all the stuff, it will never work on the corporate project. But on the solo project, it may work. It may work in some cases, but even in such cases, you may assume that even if your project, even if the product you are developing is quite small, it's relatively small, but so in future, or maybe time by time, your product, your program can become larger and larger. So, and then of course you may need to firstly you need to organize your future work, how you work there, and also the documentation and let's say the trace log of changes done before. So basically, the first steps to understand before we start talking about the project management is the concept of the project itself. So first of all, we have what are the members of the project. First of all, we have on the top level we have the customer who wants to get the product. Like if that's the website, if that's the software. So there's the customer, we call this, usually that's not the person, it's usually the company. Company who wants to get the result, the product. So they order, they create the order, they ask, can be the single developer, we call them freelancers. It can also be the group of developers. It means that this is the company who produces such websites or such software. Accenture, for example, other companies. So these companies are those who provide the development. And so again, on top we have the customer and we have the company which produces the product. There can be multiple companies. It's in large projects. It's quite possible. Then there may be different companies who work on the same product for the same customer. And it's also possible that the customer itself has the group of the developers, the group of IT, not mandatory, it can be developers as well, but maybe not only developers, the group of IT people who also are part of the development process. So they can also be from the customer side. So these are the units on the top of this hierarchy. So, and again, the key point is that we want to deliver the best possible product to them. We always are aimed to deliver the best possible product to the customer. In addition, I think that it won't be mentioned in the further slides, but of course we have budget, since nothing is free, and this one, especially in IT, may cost sometimes huge money for the customer to get the product, and since we mostly work in the European Union and in such countries, then we usually are paid by time for time. And so it means that for let's say 40 hours a week, the customer will pay for such development. Usually customers pay for the developers themselves. Like if they come from external company, like Accenture, or just any external company who produces the development, and they will pay to Accenture for this group of developers. And if there are usually there are more than five persons, they can be developers, they can be also the IT people who work on this project. Then the customer will pay for each of them. That is how it usually works. Yeah, and also the rate paid depends on the role. Usually it does not depend on the role. It depends on usually it depends on the role, and it does not really depend on the skills. Yeah, because actually it happens in the way that the customer gives let's say we have 5 positions. For example, 5 positions we need. Then for each position we have a separate role. It can be the programmer, it can be can also be the mentor for the other programmers, can be the project manager, and so on and so on. And we will talk about different roles. And for each role there is the payment rate the customer pays to the IT company who produces the project. Usually there's such, usually the scheme looks in the way I just said. Maybe there may be some exceptional cases, like if they pay for a group of people, it can also be possible. Also it depends on time, like if the project is for fixed time. If it's it can be for several days, for several months, and also for several years as well. If there are some long-term projects, and of course the payment depends on the time as well. Also there are support projects, which means that the group of developers just continuously work as support. So they may have some requirements to improve some things, to change some things, to fix some issues. So this is called support. They may not just work simply just like 8 hours a day. They can be like they work maybe less hours. They just get we call them tickets, but they usually are called as the tickets, and they do change. So this is how the project is usually structured. But of course, again, the main target for those who produce the product is to, as it happens in the business, usually we want to get, those who produce the products, we want to get more money for, let's say, and spend less resources, and for the customer is to spend less money to get the best possible products, basically, as it happens everywhere in the business. So just optimization of the resources. So this is what we think about when we talk about the project organization in general. But now let's move to the actual part, how the projects are organized. So it depends on the work to be done in the project. So sometimes it's possible that there are, let's say, there are seven some participants, members of the project, who just and there is the only task to fix the traffic lights, for example. In this case, we cannot really say that maybe these people do not do what they need to do. Maybe the only thing they all need to do is just fix one traffic light, fix the traffic lights, and maybe that's it. But yeah, in this case, in general, that's the problem. That may be the problem of the project management. First of all, if there's nothing more to do, then the issue is that the client, the customer, requested more resources than needed. So the customer ordered, let's say, 7 human resources, 7 people, but actually there is no need for so many resources. On the other side, there may be more work to do here, like there may be some additional work to do. But these resources, these six people don't work on other stuff. So that's also the problem. In this case, that's the problem of those who organize the work then. So what else we can imagine in this picture? Also, maybe the plan is not well organized. Like let's say maybe the plan for them was just to fix all the things one by one. So they said that before the traffic lights are fixed, you cannot do other things. You cannot work on other. We can say other development. So in this case, but yeah, we can see that there are the issues somewhere here on the project management. Yeah, there is one really important law. I think I mentioned about it in the previous course to you. But yeah, that's quite important law when we talk about project management, because this is quite a typical mistake for lots of different managers and customers, and they think that if we have, let's say, maybe even more twice as many people as we have now, then it will then the development will be faster. We'll finish all the things twice as fast as we could finish it without the increasing of number of people. But of course, that's absolutely not correct. Why? I will give you the example from my experience. My first project was long-term project was the company where there were like 300 people working on the same development, on the same product. Yeah, the product was quite large. There were different systems, different softwares involved there. Also, there had to be the discussions with the business people. What do they want to have at the end? What are the requirements? What are the best solutions? So basically, there were 300 people working on to make this product done. Yeah, so to create this one product. And at the end, actually, the result was quite bad, because basically I as a developer, I usually face the situation where there is I do the changes, then another person do the changes, then we actually we interfere in each other, we actually do. So once I do the changes, then some adjustments will be done by another developer, then when another developer does the changes, then I need to do the adjustments from my side. There's basically, it was like endless cycle, and of course it would be better if just one person does all the stuff there, because otherwise, of course, it depends on the communication, how well the communication is done between the members of the project. But of course, you may understand that sometimes it is faster to do the work by yourself, not to include the others there. Yeah, so that's basically typically from the real life. Yeah, like let's say the simple example would be if you want to text the message from somewhere, then of course it won't be faster if you ask another person to help you to write the same message. Of course, you will not. It will make it slower. Yeah? For obvious reasons. It will not make it faster if you ask someone to help you to. Help to just it means that you know what you want to write. You know how you want to write. What type of the message? What's the text? In this case, of course, it won't be faster if you ask someone else to help you. Yeah, and usually it would be even slower because others can disturb you. They can actually make something wrong, and of course, it's in such cases it's better to do it by yourself. And of course, and in addition, when we talk about the project work, so imagine that you are doing the project, have been doing the project for let's say since 6 months. Yeah, so during the previous 6 months, you work every day on the same stuff. You developed the product, you wrote the code, you had some discussions with the customer who want to get the product at the end. And right now, let's say that there are more developers coming into the project. First of all, of course, they don't know the system itself, because they can't know the system without the previous learning and inspecting how everything works, how all the components are linked to each other, and so on. So they should be introduced to the project first. And so that's quite important thing to be done. Yeah. Of course, they don't know the methodologies used in the project, and in addition, so from my experience, quite complicated point is that you actually don't know the people who work on the project. So especially if you want to, you may have some issues, you may have some questions, and you simply may not know whom to ask them. And if you have the tasks to do, then and you maybe if that's external project, when there are maybe different companies included, then of course you don't know who all these people are, right? So, and if you have some communications, you may see some people, and of course at first you don't know who they are and what are their responsibilities. So of course it takes some time for the people to become productive, and this never works at the last stages of the project. Because again, imagine that you have some deadlines and you may have some issues with the deadlines, and of course the first thing which may come to your mind is let's add more manpower, let's add more people to the project, and of course in such case we will definitely manage to create the project, to finish the project until the deadline. Of course that won't work, because if you add new people, you need to introduce them to the project, you need to involve them into the project, because if you have some discussions, some common developments, and of course they should be part of the team. And it's never possible to be the part of the team starting first, second. So you need to explore what happens. Yeah. So as more people work on the project, another issue is that it's hard to split up tasks, and this is what I said. You cannot just simply work together on the same message typing. Yeah, so that won't be quite productive. So in this case, there should be the way how the work is split in tasks. Also the communication, as I already mentioned. There are some formulas. If communication management already is increased by, say, n units, then productivity is increased only by the square root of the units. So that's true, because again, imagine if we have managers, then they should manage all these resources, and of course it takes time. It's harder to manage all these resources, it's harder to link them with each other, and of course it is not as fast as it may look like. There's also state configuration management. It is necessary to avoid the course on high machine issues. That's also true, because again, we have different members of the project, and of course they should have a similar setup for their computers, because this may be quite that's not only related to the computers, it can also be related to some configurations on each computer, like you may have a different setup. And basically this is what we had during our course, that sometimes your behavior on your Eclipse, your unit test is different from, or your Bitbucket is different from mine. The reason here is that we have some differences in the configurations on our computers, and of course, if this is a real project, if there are basically two developers working on similar stuff, and of course, if one of the developers has no issues and another has some problems because of the configuration, This is also not what we want to have. We should want to have all the setup to be similar, so don't face such configuration issues. And yeah, basically how to organize the project. And so this is called project management. So for the project management, yeah, so basically there are different theories, different methodologies historically used for the project management. And so basically, usually we manage the projects according to the methodologies. And as you may see in this picture, time by time there come a different methodologies came. So usually they mostly are the derivatives from the previous project management methodologies. As you may see, we start with waterfall. That's historically what we're talking about. That's historically the first methodology used for the projects, and time by time we come to new and new methodologies. We need them to actually have the right structure. So if we have the methodology, if we have the structure, we can reuse and then start working on our projects. So that's right, and so then we can move to the methodologies. So what are the main software development methodologies? So we may have the prototyping. So it means that we do development, then we refine the things, we demonstrate them, we determine the objectives, and then we do the testing and we implement. They may be the spiral methodology, like we start with the analysis, then we go to evolution, then we actually development. We can actually start with planning, analysis, evolution, development. Basically, in theory, we can simply use it as a cycle, but yeah, we'll talk about these things a little bit later. And the first methodology is, start with the first methodology is waterfall. So, what the waterfall is? The waterfall is certainly that, as you can see from the name, it means that we go from the top to bottom. And basically, there are under the waterfall model, there are 5 steps. Sorry, five steps. 5 main steps. They are strictly defined, and each of the step defines the stage of the development. So first we'll start with the requirements. Okay. So during the requirement stage, we define what is actually needed, what are the functions needed, the behavior, performance, and interfaces, how they should look like, basically what we want to achieve at the end of the project. So what are the main targets for our project, what are the main goals, and maybe there can also be some restrictions and money restrictions, time restrictions. So all these things can be defined under the requirement stage. Then we go to the next one. The next one is design. Design is actually the part where we prepare to the implementation. So at this point we actually define what kind of changes changes and also the development can be done, needed to be done, how the development process itself will look like, basically what are the resources needed to be used. I mean the physical resources, also the human resources, how many developers are needed, what is the qualification of the developers needed for corresponding project, and yeah, also about the physical resources. It can also be, technical resources, what are needed, if the software, what kind of the software is needed to produce the product, how much does it cost, maybe sometimes it's better to use more expensive software or some technical things. Sometimes customers prefer cheaper resources. It depends. And based on this, of course, the design may look differently. Then go to implementation. This is the main part of the project. Here we actually produce the product. So here we have if that's the program, we create source code, we actually build all the related stuff. It can be database, also the documentation. That's the really important part if you work for large projects. Then all the steps we better document all the steps, so the people after us may see what is done, and where it is done, of course. What else can be done under the implementation part? The source code, database, documentation, basically all the physical things needed to get the product. So at this point the implementation is done. Then we go to the verification, to the testing part. So under the testing part, basically the product developed in the previous step is tested. So we check, usually there are different people working on all these stages, on all the parts of these stages, at this point basically the testers test if the implementation is correct, if all the requirements are satisfied, if everything is fine, and then it goes to the maintenance part, where actually all the issues from determined under the verification part are detected. So then all these issues to be fixed there. And for simple performance, because performance is quite important thing, and performance is also quite tricky thing, because the performance is different when we talk about big data, about large data sources. Of course, it works differently for big databases with lots of data, and this may be the trickiest performance, maybe the trickiest point during the development, because when we implement the system, implement the product, we usually don't have so much data as we may have in the real environment. Because usually in the real environment we may have like millions of entries in a large database, but during the development, because in the production there may be lots of related customers, lots of related transactions. They may be collected like year by year, and this is not what we usually have during the development. So that's why the performance issues may be detected, may not be detected during the implementation stage, but they can be detected on the testing, sometimes only on the verification part. So basically this is how the waterfall model looks like, and I think you may already see the problem here. The problem here is what can we actually, using such a methodology, what we can actually do if there are some like if we want to jump back on these stages. What can we actually, if we have like new requirements on the verification stage? So in this case, under the waterfall methodology, there is no way we can actually go back here. Or if something needed to be changed on the design or under the implementation, such methodology does not give us the path and how can we actually change. But yeah, that was the first. That is the first methodology find, and of course there may be some disadvantages of it. And yeah, this is the weak point of the waterfall model, that we cannot actually repeat and go back to the previous stages. But yeah, what are the advantages of the waterfall methodology? First of all, each next phase is much more expensive. So this is basically how, as I said before, the changes on the last stages of the projects are usually more expensive than on the beginning. Why? Because you may understand that if some changes are required on the latest stages of the project, that you may see that we should also do the changes on all the stages done before. So of course it will affect directly all the previous points. And that's why I said it costs more. Yeah, because if some changes required here, that means that we go back to this stage, and to go through them all. And of course, it costs more on the later stage. And doing something is waste of resources. So at this point, say that, as I said, waterfall has a certain advantage and disadvantage. This is, of course, because again we don't actually have the right in the clear way how we can go back. We just by definition we just need to repeat all the steps here, and of course this is not efficient from the economical point of view. Yeah, so this is what we have here. And the next in the next model, which is more which came after the waterfall, is so-called the model, and this is practically the extension of waterfall model, and it has improved structure of waterfall model. So basically, as I said, the weakest point of the waterfall model is that we don't have the actual paths to the previous stages. We just need to repeat them all. In the model, it has the phases, as you can see, and it shows the relationship between development phases and test phases. So basically, we have three main basically 2 points. Not 3 points. So we have the project definition. So we have the definition of the whole project. No, actually we have 4 points. Sorry. Then we have the implementation, and then we have the testing, where we have the verification validation. If something goes wrong, then we go back. So time and project completeness goes to the versus level of abstraction here. Then there's iterative and incremental development. So this is the combination of both iterative design and iterative method, and the incremental build model for development. So basically, how it works, we have the initial planning, and then we go to the planning stage. So we define the requirements first, then we do the analysis design, we do the implementation, and then we see if we need to do testing, if the project is not tested before, then we go to the testing part, and we go to evaluation. So if something is wrong, then we have the requirements, we do the analysis, and so on and so on. So this may come after the testing. So once the testing is done, it has no issues detected. Then in this case we just have no requirements, and then we finish and the deployment group. The prototyping. So before we create the products, we should only have the prototyping of them. Why it is needed? Of course, first of all, to show the customers what we are going to produce. Because otherwise, if we just simply show them the product at the end, of course they may complain about it. So if this is not what they expected, and of course to prevent such issues, we may need to do the prototyping. So it's basically the preparing stage to the project. Because usually requirement gathering is difficult because software is wrong, because the present situation is unsatisfactory. However, the server administration is as yet unknown. So basically, because of these reasons, we actually need to gather all the requirements and also to have the visual concept of the product we are going to develop. And yeah, it is going to the prototyping is to obtain the requirements as some aspects of the system. And yeah, it should be a relatively cheap process because we can just simply develop the whole product and then use it as the prototype. Of course not, we should have pretty much initial view how and what should be done. So that's why, to make it cheap, we have to use rapid prototyping languages and tools. So it means that we cannot really need to write the logic for the whole solution. Only the kind of simple logic. Yeah, like usually it can be also done that if you need to show some values, then you may simply hard code them in the code without using the database. So in some cases you may also, to build the prototype, you may skip using the actual values, or you may use the database, but don't have like all the relevant values in the database. So this is also possible. Then you can skip implementing some functionality. That's also, yeah, this is basically also can be related to what I just said, the database. So maybe you can skip implementing the database, just hard code the values. That's one of the examples. Maybe some functionality, like other functionality, maybe that's the value of maybe some actual pages can be skipped and so on. And yeah, of course, production quality is not required because this is the prototype. It should not work as the actual product, just to show how it may look like. Then we go to the Agile. Agile methodology is one of the most popular, and it works as the base for many methodologies in the world. In general, it has the so-called manifesto. So these are the main principles of what we want to achieve using the Agile methodology. So first order is that individuals and interactions should be over the processes and tools. So in this case, if we work on development of the website, then we should first think about those who create the those items to make my computer faster. So first we need to think about the people who work on corresponding products, not the actual code. So if there are maybe some issues, then we may ask the question from the perspective why the person was not able to actually create the right solution there. And so you may think about not the code itself and not the process, but about the individuals who actually wrote this code. And to make it easier for the members of the project to interact with each other, to cooperate with each other, and to make the overall work better in teams. Also should work concentrate on the working software rather than on the massive documentation. So, as I said, documentation is quite important, but you should not just make people like every day just have 1 hour of work and 7 hours of writing documentation about what was done. Of course, that's not the right approach, and it is not acceptable in the right project management. And then, of course, next one is customer collaboration or contract negotiation. It means that customers should mostly talk about what kind of project or product they want to have, how they want to achieve it, about the ways they can achieve it, about ways to cooperate with each other, rather than just talking about only the financial thing. And the last one is responding to change over following plan. So it means that the key point is that you just do not simply need to follow all the initial plan. Like there are 10 points to be done. Of course, there may be some unexpected issues, unexpected changes happen in the project itself. So of course, then you should focus and be flexible to work with all these adjustments. And what are the principles? Active user involvement is imperative. So as it says here, the team must be empowered to make decisions. So again, there's the talk about the communication. About making decisions. Of course, since in Java is to work on teams, so it's not like just simply one group of developers just work on everything. No, there's work on teams. Each team may work on different processes, on different areas. And of course they should make the decisions, because they should be able to make the decisions, not just have any serious. There should be the discussions to prevent some serious issues, and of course, the members of the team should be involved in these discussions and also to make the decisions. The requirements involved, but the time scale is fixed, so normally should not exceed the time scale provided. And you should also capture requirements at high level, lightweight, visual. Then drop small incremental release template, so not just simply work on one large development, but to split the development into the smaller parts and implement them after that. And so it means that you have the list of the you have the list of the things to be done, so you can split them in different sections, in different parts, and then have the list of these changes to be done. So we just put them in parts. So one part is done, then it is released, it is tested and released. Then there's another part, another part. So it means that changes are released time by time, not just in one package. It is quite efficient, especially if you are doing the maintenance, because you can imagine that you may have more issues if there is the large package of the changes delivered than if you just have small package of the changes. Then of course it's easier to detect what can be the possible reason of the issue, what can be the possible source of the issue. So it's easier to detect it, the issues, and prevent them if you have smaller amount of changes. So it's quite efficient, and it's also more flexible to have some adjustments to these changes. Then of course I focus on frequent delivery products. So again, since it comes from the previous step, we just release the product time by time, release the package of changes time by time. So of course we can more focus on the delivering products. Then we should complete each feature before moving to the next. So it means that we can only simply leave one feature uncompleted before we move to the next. That makes sense. Otherwise, we may have quite serious chaos. And so, this may not be quite good. So then there is Acitivity rule, that's also called the Pareto principle, and basically it means that so there are different meanings for this rule, but you may heard about this. For example, in economy, there is that reaches, let's say, there can be reaches 20% of the world population get 80% of income, and all the others get 20%. So that's quite possible. And also for the income in software projects, we can for the development. It works in a way that also we call as fixing the top 20% of the most reported bugs, and after that maybe 80% of the related errors and crashes in a given system will be eliminated. So it basically means that so 30% is the actual development, and the 80% is the not the fixing, but the related work to be done on these 80%. Because this is basically usually how it happens. Because when you have something to develop, you usually have the overall picture of what should be done, how it should be done, and so on. So this may be called as 20%. But when you actually start working on development, you discover some more and more things to be done, more and more related things to be also covered as well. And at the end, you may face the situation when the time you spend for the for the stuff you initially detected, and 80% can be spent on the stuff, on the steps you did not realize before. Yeah, so this is quite a typical situation, and practice it happens a lot, and we should really understand that this is how it can happen. Another principle is testing integrated through the project life cycle. So test early and often, so we should not just simply test everything at the right end, but also test it during the protocol life cycle, during the all the steps. So it should be done on all stages. And of course, the collaborative approach between all the stakeholders is essential. So everyone should collaborate with each other. Everyone should know what others do. If in case you need to contact someone or just to check something, then of course there should be the right cooperation between members. So this is the Pareto principle. Just that you actually, this may be also interpreted in different ways. But again, in such case, that is that you may spend 20% of effort, it gives you 80% result, and 80% of effort can give you 20% result. Yeah, this is quite true, because let's mention one thing. One thing, you have the let's say huge software built by you. So that's 80% again. So huge software, and you actually get you have the issue. You have the bug which just stops the whole program from working. So you have one issue somewhere, you don't know where is it, but actually spend a lot of time before. You spend a lot of time, you built the huge program, but unfortunately it doesn't work because there is the issue somewhere. So the bug somewhere, and you don't know where is it. But you actually spend 80% of time, but since you have the error, you have the bug in your program, it doesn't work. So you just have, let's say, 20% of the result, because your program doesn't work. But then let's say that you spend a quarter of time you spent before, so it's 20%, it's quarter of 80%, and you fixed the bug, and you actually got 80%. Or even more, one of the examples can be that you actually, on the opposite way, you actually spend 80% of time searching for one issue, and you get just 20% of it, because this is just one issue, one small issue. You actually spend a lot of time for it, and you get a small result. But after the issue is fixed, you found the issue, so everything is fine, and you get 80% result. Also, this rule is quite important when we talk about learning things. Like maybe also for you to write your first Java program, let's say the meaningful Java program. It took, of course, for you, let's say 80% effort to just wrote one program. So that's But after that, you know how to do it, you just have all the necessary knowledge, and of course you make more results. But you spend less time because you already have all the necessary skills. You don't need to Google, you don't need to check with others, you know how to do it, and of course you spend less effort, but of course you get more results. And yeah, basically these are the difference between waterfall and Java. In Java everything goes in a cyclical way. Like we have, how does the Java look like? Again, as I said, we have the small parts of the elements to be delivered. So we have the package of changes to come here, package of requirements come, and here process all the requirements, we deliver the requirements, then we have new requirements, so basically those just in a continuous cycle. Here. On the waterfall we have the start and we have the end, and we don't have any cycles here. So if something is wrong here, then we should finish and go back. Okay, so in this case there is no cycle that defined, it's just starting. Then yeah, also when we talk about Agile, we should also talk about Scrum. And the Scrum is actually it's not, I cannot really say it's methodology. We can say the element of Agile, the process of Agile, where we actually split the work. And in Agile, as I already mentioned before, we have the tickets. So these are usually the work to be done. We can need say create one feature, fix something, just do some stuff. Yeah, actually it can be named. And we have the list of such works, and Scrum actually says that please grab the tickets and start working on that. So that's why we can compare the Scrum to Rugby and move on. So we can compare something. So basically the same as here, just grab everything and move on. So the same as here. Yeah, Rugby, you just grab the ball and start. Same as in Scrum. So yeah, in general, how Scrum looks like. That's the iterative and incremental Java software development framework. So it's flexible, holistic development strategy, and development team works as an atomic unit. So first of all, what you have the backlog. So this is the list of all the tasks to be done. Yeah, the tasks may be related to the code writing, some setups, a database setup, web page setup, and so on. So this is the list of the tasks. And then there's the product owner, who basically creates these tasks, and so then it goes to the sprint. The work can be split into the sprints, and there's the development team who basically work on can work on these items in backlog. So first of all, there's this sprint planning, forecasts, work planning, and so on. So then we have the sprint backlog. So this is the package of the items taken from the backlog, and these are the items which should be done during the corresponding sprint. So the sprint is started, and then the work is actually started. So we have all daily scrums. It means that these are the meetings. Usually they may happen daily. Sometimes they happen maybe twice a day or maybe twice a week. They all are called daily scrums. And during the daily scrums, the Scrum Master actually goes through all the tickets, which are not done yet. And during the sprint ends, then discusses each ticket. So then during the Scrum, or it can also during the daily Scrum, or it can also be outside the Scrum, the developers just, if they have time, they grab the tickets and start working on them. So during the sprint, every day, or during each daily Scrum, depends on how often they happen. And all these tickets are discussed. So discussions happen here. They discuss if they can discuss if something is wrong, why there are some if there are some difficulties, they can discuss some issues. All these things can be discussed there. Right, so once it is done, then there's the sprint is finished. It says maximum 1 month, but again, it depends. It can be different. It goes into the sprint review, retrospective, and if the product is releasable or not. If not, then the release can be moved to the next sprint. Then there are some different roles for the Scrum. So first of all, there's product owner. So this is actually maybe not the customer, can be the representative of the customer who actually holds the vision for the product. So that's the person who defines the items which should be done during the sprint. Next one is Scrum Master. This is the person who is responsible for the creation of the process called daily Scrum. So this is the leader of the daily Scrum, and maybe not only the daily Scrum, but Scrum in general. Helps the team best to use Scrum to build the project. This is the person who is responsible to organize the Scrum and so on. And the development team is basically the team who develop all these items. Developer, tester, quality assurer. So developers are those who write the code and use such a way that things. Then tester, quality assurer. So this is the tester who is responsible for testing, and configuration manager. Manager who is responsible for configuration, but in general there may be different roles here. Again, it depends on what are you working on. At this point I would like to mention that in IT, I'm not sure if you know or not, then the roles in IT are very different. And there may be the persons, the employees, persons who are the technical persons, so they write the code, they know all the technical things, and so they produce the they physically produce the product. But developers, such technical persons, are not those who actually communicate the requirements with the business, with the product owners, with the customers. Yeah, so they only work on they only write the code. So write the code or just do the development and do some similar stuff. Yeah, so these are technical persons, they know how to write the code, they are responsible for the code writing and so on. Then there, on the other side, there are the members who absolutely don't write code. Sometimes they are those who never written the code. It's also possible. So the role for them is to discuss the requirements. Such persons usually are very familiar with what are the actual requirements. They have the overall view of quite detailed view of all the elements of the system, how these elements should work, how they should interfere with each other, how they should behave, and so on. So such persons, again, as I said, they maybe even don't know how the code is written, where it is written, but they actually know what the whole product should do. Normally they should also understand how the product, what are the features of the product, what are the possibilities for changes. And so these are mostly called, we call them functional people, not technical, but functional people. The terms may be different, but such people are mostly called functional. They can also do maybe some configuration, but they usually don't write the code. Then there's the third group of the members in IT, where we can call them all in one. There are such people who basically do everything. They they code themselves, they discuss the requirements, and so on. And so such persons, they can be software engineers or project architects. They can be, but maybe they don't. Basically, if we talk about software architects, then they usually don't write code, but they know how to write the code, they know where to write the code, they know all the parts of the code, how they link with each other. They just don't write, but they know how the system in general looks like. And this may also be quite important because quite important that they don't write the code, because they should have the overall view and they should understand how it works. So this is about the project software architects, project architects. And there are also the testers, of course. These are those who know how to test, because again, by default, maybe not all the developers do know how to test, because the work for the tester is I would say it's quite complicated work. I work with some colleagues who are maybe not the best code writers, but they're quite good testers. So what does it mean? It means that they should be able to find the issue. sometimes may not be an issue, but they should be able to detect all the possible cases, test cases, what may possibly go wrong, where something can go wrong. So they should be able to go through all the possible scenarios to actually find the issue. So that's about the testers. What about the artifacts of Scrum? So there's the product increment. So that's the integrated shippable subset of the product. So then there's the backlog, and as I already mentioned, this is the list of it's called ideas for the product. You can call it the items to be done, or they can be done, because maybe not all the items can be. All the items of the backlog can be implemented, because sometimes we can call them as the ideas, because not all the ideas can be implemented, of course. That's true, and this may be quite important case. Then there's sprint backlog. This is the subset of the product backlog, which is not implemented yet, and which can be implemented during the course, during the sprint. There are team members. They just pull new issue from the, take the issue from the sprint when the previous issue is done, and nobody pushes tasks to runners. Usually nobody pushes, but on practice it happens sometimes that the items from the backlog or from the sprint backlog are pushed to the developers. What are the activities of Scrum? So first there's product backlog reference, and basically this is the procedure where actually the items come to the product backlog, new items are created. So then in this stage we should have all the items to be passed to backlog. Then the next one is the planning of the sprint. So once the backlog is finished, we can actually plan how long the sprint should be, what should be done during the sprint, what are the tickets to be taken to be done during the sprint, and what are the results to expect from the sprint, of course. There are no other interruptions during the day for team members. The day is coming. That's again how it looks like. As I just said, there's the team. The team goes to the meeting. It's called daily Scrum. Then the Scrum Master goes through all the tickets which are not done, and then the Scrum Master discusses the tickets with the team members. And usually it's said that there are no other interruptions during the day for team members. This is maybe not really true. Sometimes if something crucial, if there's something crucial in the project, then there may be other interruptions in practice. Scrum, there's sprint review, so where we actually review what was done, how it was done, Maybe there are some missing points, sometimes something which can be improved, and the retrospective, just a discussion, how the sprint, and then also the part of the sprint, basically the place where the tickets are placed is called the Kanban board. So as you can see, basically the Kanban board looks this way. There are stages of the tickets, proposed, what are the proposed tickets there. Then just each stage can be active, done, completed, on review, testing, and so on. So basically have the stage. And this is quite relevant actual picture, because nowadays almost everything happens, almost everything is monitored in some software programs like Jira, or there can be other programs as well, where basically this also in Microsoft Teams there's a relatively new feature. It was introduced last year, like a year ago, something like that. In Microsoft Teams there is also such Kanban board where you can actually implement this. And of course you have the stages of the ticket. Usually, again, the initial stages there are what should be done, proposed or to do. Then there is the in progress, then testing, and then complete. So these are three base stages, and then there can also be some stages in between, like maybe some clarifications needed, maybe some additional steps maybe needed somewhere. Also for the tickets we usually define the priority and dependencies. And so in this case, again, nowadays we usually don't use the boards anymore. We use kind of software like Jira, or we'll work with Jira in this course. I will show you, and then you'll see how it normally looks on practice. For each task, there can be priority. If it's priority low or epic, it can be such different priorities. Also the dependencies, because sometimes it's really important to finish several items before we go to the next item. So we should cover all the dependencies. And so this is basically the way how we can track. Also, how track the progress. Also, we can type the comments under each ticket. So then, after that, we can actually see the log of what was done on the corresponding ticket. Actually, we can use it as the documentation. And also, as I said, we can link it to the branches, the branches of our code. But yeah, as I said, I will show you. Okay, then we go to link, but I guess this is where we can start. Our next session. Right, so I guess for now we can stop, and then we can continue on Wednesday. So for now, no practical tasks for you. yet. So just take I believe you have the presentation, so you can go through and check some information we talked about. For now, thank you very much for your attention today, and I wish you all on nice day. Thank you. Bye.